Nothing in this podcast is intended as investment advice, and the people in this podcast may hold positions in the stocks they talk about. Do not buy any investment based solely on a tip or recommendation. Please do your own research.
Hello and welcome to the Sunday Roast. I'm Phil Carroll.
And I'm Kevin Hornsby.
Sunday the 1st of October, so rabbits. We're into Q4 now. Where did 2023 go, Kev?
Yeah, it's been mega busy for me. So, seems like. But from the point of view of the markets, where did it go? Did it go anywhere?
It feels like we've not even had a year, doesn't it? It feels like it's pretty much the same as it was in October 2022 in terms of sentiment, I'd say.
The malaise or the sentiment is certainly hasn't changed. Let's put it that way. We keep sort of hoping there's going to be breakthroughs, don't we, in terms of sentiment. But darkest days before the dawn, as they say, or darkest times before the dawn. So let's see what happens.
Yeah. How does it feel to be back home? You're back home in Egypt now.
Yeah, I'm in Egypt, and other than being jet lagged, I'm fine. But it does feel good to be home, actually, to be honest. Having been in the United States of America for 4 weeks. Yeah, it was good. It was a good trip. The south of the US is very historic, if you like, And it was good. It was good.
Good.
But glad to be back.
Good. All right. Well, I've been looking at the news this week. Relatively slow week. Interesting one, the Met downing firearms and then the Army standing in. The officers have actually resumed regular duties after several disarmed themselves due to a colleague being charged with the murder of Chris Cabba, an unarmed 24-year-old shot in Streatham Hill, southeast London in September 2022. This internal crisis was sparked by the Crown Prosecution Service's decision to charge the officer, who was granted anonymity during a recent appearance at Westminster Magistrates Court. The media intends to contest this decision at the Old Bailey. I presume that they want this man outed, which is ridiculous, because can you imagine any other officer ever wanting to carry a weapon if the names are given? So what are your thoughts on that? It's a difficult one, isn't it? Because ultimately these guys are carrying a lethal weapon around. They have to make a decision in literally a split second whether to draw and fire, and then they're now being charged with murder. It almost sets a precedent, doesn't it, this case?
Yeah, I don't know the details of the case, to be honest, but I thought I read it in the news that this was what had happened. Yeah, if you want these guys to carry weapons and protect us, then, even if sometimes they do make a mistake, I don't believe they can be accused of murder then after that. No. It's almost like the whole soldier thing as well, where they're saying that the soldiers did X, Y, and Z on the battlefield, and it's like you're going to accuse them of things. This is just it is a bit of wokeism gone crazy again, I would imagine. Yeah, obviously that's just my personal view, but it just doesn't seem right. Obviously, if you're on the other end of it and you're the one that was shot dead, then maybe you'd be thinking, or the family would be thinking very differently. But yeah. Again, I don't know the details of the case.
No, and none of us probably do. We don't know the exact reason why the officer pulled his gun and decided to fire. The guy was sat in his vehicle behind a windscreen, and did he reach for something? In America, this sort of thing happens pretty much I'd say multiple times on a daily basis, where a police officer will draw the weapon and shoot to kill. And they really don't seem to ask questions out there. That as soon as somebody is resisting arrest and doesn't show their hands, if they've created whatever the misdemeanor or felony is, they do tend to shoot. And there's a lot of videos on there. Obviously most officers are now wearing these body cameras just so that we can, in cases like this, they can analyze the footage and to the nth degree. But yeah, a bit of a crazy one, really. As I say, the fact that so many officers joined, went together in unison and handed their weapons in and said, "Look, why would we want to carry a weapon if we're going to be done for murder?" And you can kind of understand that, would you? Do you really want to go to work to be charged with murder when you're given such kind of? Yeah, I don't know. It's a very interesting debate.
Yeah, no, for sure you wouldn't. The scenario is very different than the US, because in the UK, how often do these guys shoot? Very, very, very,
very rarely, wasn't it? Very rarely, yeah.
They don't discharge their weapons very often at all. So, yeah, it doesn't mean there hasn't been a mistake or that is right or wrong, but ultimately putting yourself in that situation is difficult.
Yeah, then we had the news channel GB News. Host was suspended over misogynist comments live on air. I don't know if it's over. Basically, Lawrence Fox's derogatory remarks about journalist Ava Evans on GB News were strongly condemned by the channel's CEO Angelos Frangopoulos, who stated they went beyond acceptable limits. Both Fox and host Dan Wootton, who failed to challenge Fox's comments during the live broadcast, have been suspended. The channel is also under investigation by Ofcom, which received 7,300 complaints. The CEO described the remarks as appalling and not in line with GB News' values, emphasising the need for respectful free speech. While both Fox and Wootton have since apologised, the channel's international investigation is ongoing, focusing on the comments. Another presenter from GB News, Reverend Calvin Robinson, has also been suspended in a related incident. I mean, do you think GB News is now, is effectively a trash talk news channel glossed up as an official outlet? Do you think MPs are going to start distancing themselves from it now?
Don't know. What did he say?
He basically came out and talked about this female journalist that says, like, no man is going to want to climb into bed with her because of her comments against, it was about male suicide, and she made some cutting comments on that, which were very, very insensitive. And she's also made comments in the past. She's kind of one of these feminists who basically, like, they describe her as being toxic feminist, who says, men shouldn't have touched women in these ways and everything, and basically just putting men off from ever even going near women, really. So these were his comments in response to that.
Right. Okay. No comment.
No comment. All right, moving swiftly on. Probably one you've seen, you might not, but it is quite a sad story, this one. But in a way, let's hope there's something good comes out of it. One of the UK's most iconic trees at Northumberland's Sycamore Gap, basically recognised from films like Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, you've probably seen it. It was intentionally felled, basically a massive amount of emotion and outpour and anger at that one. Located in the striking dip in Hadrian's Wall, this frequently photographed tree has been the site of countless personal stories, from marriage proposals to the scattering of ashes. Despite the public's anger over its loss, there's hope that a new growth may arise from the stump. A 16-year-old has been arrested and released on bail in connection with this incident. I mean, what sort of mindless vandalism is that, where you take, presumably it's been done professionally with a chainsaw across it, and it's now, I mean, it's such an iconic tree. I don't know if you've seen the photos of it with the Milky Way in the back.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you've summed it up. What sort of mindless idiot is going to do that? Well, a mindless idiot.
Yeah.
Either that or it's, I mean, I don't know the backstory.
There was some comment on Twitter or X saying that this person has got an axe to grind with the National Trust. I'm thinking it's probably not. Why would you have an axe to grind in the first place? And secondly, why would you go and take it out on a tree that's it's just an icon, isn't it?
Literally an axe to grind is what he's done.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Yeah, no, it's very sad because it's very sad because it takes like decades, if not centuries, for these trees to grow.
300-year-old, yeah. I mean, Google Maps has actually now been updated, and it's really sad. It now says Sycamore Stump, would you believe? I mean, how quickly has that been updated? But is it healthy enough to regrow? Maybe it is, but will it ever? It might just grow shoots and be a sort of shadow of its former self. It would be nice if it did, but I mean, there's been poems written on there. It's amazing how much this kind of, this nature and that it brings people's emotions. You say there's personal stories from proposals to scattering of ashes under the tree. So it is an icon, and it's a tourist attraction as well, ultimately.
Yeah. Well, maybe it will be reborn. So let's see.
So let's introduce our first guest this week, seasoned mining entrepreneur, Colin Bird. Welcome back, Colin. How's life treating you?
Nice to be back. I think life treating me pretty much is the same as my peers on the AIM, but I think as a general question, life treated me pretty well, and very, very active and very, very sort of involved in lots of things, and enjoying the world. I'm confused by it, of course, like the rest of us, and but looking forward to a better autumn. I think seasoned entrepreneur, and put the word optimist, because we wouldn't be in this business unless that's what we are. And I am eternally optimistic, but getting more optimistic because I know just by default it can't go on much longer. The way our sector has been ignored, treated and trampled on, so to speak.
So should we start with copper? We know you're obviously a big proponent of copper, fundamental to the clean energy transition, obviously facing a looming supply deficit that could derail the 2050 net zero emissions ambition. Copper demand is set to potentially double by 2035. Major mining companies, including Freeport, McMoran and Rio Tinto, grapple to meet the surge. So this shortage might stall the advancement of clean energy projects. We saw on the news this week that Goldman Sachs' Jeff Curry dubbed copper as the new oil. That's not a new phenomenon. So amid hope surrounding innovative measures like enhancing current mines and elevating recycling efforts, experts are pressing for more aggressive investments. Rio Tinto's copper's COO Clayton Walker pointed out the protracted timelines for new mining initiatives. And meanwhile, CEO of Freeport McMoran, Richard Adkisson, spotlighted the imminent copper shortfall, especially as clean energy demands rise. Notwithstanding these adversities, Wood Mackenzie's Nick Pickens emphasised copper's irreplaceable role, affirming fundamentally copper is a necessity for powering the future. So we know, as we've mentioned, you're a proponent for copper and have stressed the same as other experts just listed. Where do you see copper in the next few years from a demand perspective, cost perspective, supply perspective, and also lack of investment or M&A perspective, namely from the majors?
Yeah, and it all does go into one great big part of that question does. And, everyone doing their best. Well, those who've got a vested interest, particularly the Chinese, are doing the best to keep the price down. And people say, well, it's not gone like they expected. But it's 8.2. If you look back a few years, for it to be range bound 7.5 to 8.5, quite phenomenal when you think of the headwinds facing the world in general. It's a trade, and it's going to take some stopping. And that comment, I used it a couple of years ago, that line about copper being the new oil. And we fought wars over oil, and don't want to be pessimistic, but I think those who've got the copper are in the pound seats, and with there may be a lot of political aggression surrounding those who have got the copper. It's people. You go back to those conferences, and Boris Johnson, there he was, in 2025, this was going to happen, that was going to happen. So naive, it couldn't be true. For a supposedly intelligent man, you wonder why he'd make such comments. But there was lots of intelligent men at the time side of him making similar comments who basically control this planet. The requirement just for the development and the spending power we've got now in the developing world, we can't meet that. Then just put in not even a wild card, the reality of the electrification, alternative, the renewables and all that business. This is an unstoppable train. The demand side, people want to believe it's not going to happen. It's going to happen, Phil. There's no doubt about it. The supply side, Phil, is absolutely dismal.
Yeah.
There are no new projects on the board. Even big mining companies, somewhere in the middle of last year when copper dipped to 77,003 for a couple of weeks. Projects they'd taken off the drawing board and dusted down, they put back in the drawer. It's such a short-term reaction. So the supply side is under enormous pressure, and that's why I'm so happy to be where I am with companies like Galileo and African Pioneer and Bizad. They're all in the copper space, they're all in Africa, they're all in jurisdictions where copper is being found, copper is being developed, and the nation is pretty dependent on the revenues from copper for its foreign exchange and taxation. So, it's an unstoppable train. The majors have to lower the bar. You had BHP saying a couple of years ago, we don't want to look at projects much under 2 million ton contained copper. I don't know where those projects are for the life of me. I reckon the bar will get lowered to 1 million and possibly half a million. And any company who's got a project which passes the scoping study, where basically we'll have a buyer in 24, 25. Seen it before. I don't think I've seen it. Well, I don't think I've ever seen the perfect storm that's brewing now. But I've seen where all of a sudden mining companies wake up to, gee whiz, the metal inventory is looking pretty poor. We better go out and buy. But at that time, they'd sooner pay more, de-risk it, and let the shareholders finance the risk, for the junior market. That's not possible now, Phil. The competition is going to be so great that if you've got anything worth having, there'll be real competition for it. And so we juniors will be a call option for the copper price and for the copper shortage. So I'm delighted for our companies. I'm delighted for our projects. And I'm not so delighted for the world. Because do we really want to slow down this clean campaign? No, we don't. But the reality is that the copper shortage is not tongue-in-cheek. I think it's going to be very real. And I think the shortfalls are really going to slow down the actual electrification and all of those good things. And, not in the equation, not mentioned in this discussion, is India. The rate of change in India, the potential is enormous. And other countries too, the demand for white metal goods, cell phones, all of which go into the copper space. The metal is challenged, and I don't think the world has yet woken up to just how challenged it is. The demand is real. The supply, I don't know where it's coming from the life of me. We're doing our best, but, it's in the grand scheme of things, it's negligible. You need mines which can produce 500,000 tons of copper per year. All right? There's not many of those on the drawing board, Phil.
No. I'm going to say it's interesting because, here we are a week on from when Rishi Sunak pushed back the rollout of the sale of new petrol and diesel cars, which was originally going to be 2030, and he's pushed it out to 2035. And it derails, as you said, the nation's efforts to get to that net zero 2050 that year. Do you think it's clear now that the government is putting near-term politics above the climate and even the economy?
Well, they're doing that, but you might actually give them a bit more credit in actual fact. They don't deserve it because his predecessor, before this, of course, it didn't last 5 minutes, but they made outlandish promises. And I think those Sunak's, feet on floor. And he knows damn well there's absolutely no chance. And it's not just copper, there's lithium, there's nickel, the raw materials just aren't there. So I guess as a politician making promises that, just can't be met, he probably doesn't want to be part of that. But it's an hard blow for mankind, isn't it?
Yeah.
Of course, a lot of Southeast Asian companies are saying we're not giving up our coal, because they've got industries and jobs and financial structures around coal. So lots of promises 2 years ago, but now reality is settling in. Prime ministers and presidents are realizing talk's cheap. Action is something quite different. And we're into a very limited supply of critical materials against a huge developing demand. And, there's a divergence there that nobody really knows how to handle. And yet, you know what, Phil? They're still not talking about it as they should be, The feet's not totally on the floor. All sorts of reasons why Sunak can't do it, but they're just an underlying reason as the raw materials will not be available.
Yeah. He also managed to mess up the auction for the latest set of large-scale wind power developments. I don't know if you saw that, and that's a further setback as well, because the UK's primed for this wind power.
I know. And then they cancel all these transport projects, good Lord. What a calamity all round. Turnover in a grave 1,000 times, when you think about it. The woman was on course, politics for politics, and plans were plans. And when she set her plans, this lady's not turning. The government's forgot now, and, the UK is not the exception. The government forgot now. Just like, butterflies and straws in the wind. They bloody change with public opinion. They just basically vote seeking, not right. There's a real world out there which has to be serviced, and a planet was busy killing itself.
So, Colin, based on all of that in terms of copper from 5-6 years ago, how do you see your companies are now positioned for this copper situation?
In a very, very good way, Kevin, because we haven't sat crying in our beer, as you know. We've raised money when money has been difficult to raise. We've been, sometimes we've been drilling as much as in 4 or 5 places: Uganda, Kamativi, Namibia. And what companies have, have been doing so much drilling as we're doing? So instead of getting by saying, what a tough world we're living in for junior mining companies, we've actually done a lot of work, Kevin. So we're poised for our shareholders, and that's the word, for our shareholders, for our shareholders to enjoy the benefits of the shortage. Because we've got in Galileo, in Bazant, we've got the sort of African Pioneer, and like Extract made that great acquisition in northwest Zambia. We've got the projects, we've got the places, and our people have been good. For my whole career, I've been projects, people, and places. And boy, have we got the right projects: copper, Are they in the right places? Namibia, Zambia, Botswana, that's in the right places as far as I'm concerned. Scandinavia were there too, so that's the right place. So I think that our sort of portfolio of assets is extraordinary, and recognition time is due. Well, I've been through these cycles, Kevin, and they talk about us believing our own bull dust, but it's not bull dust. It's very real. Our projects are extremely real. Several of them are in the half a million to 1 million ton range. And I feel very good about the prospects for our shareholders for the coming year. And looking at share price on a daily basis doesn't help our shareholders either. So I just avoid that now. Just make yourself miserable. I just get on with what we're good at, adding value to our projects and being there for when the market wants us.
If all of these things come to pass, which it does seem fairly inevitable that they will, then, you're looking at also, even though you have a huge resource there in Bushranger in Australia as well, the copper may only be 0.2, 0.3, 0.4 in terms of what it is, but this is going to be very financially viable in 10 years' time if this is the situation, or even 5 years' time if this is the situation with copper.
Yeah, anybody who's got a chunk of copper in the ground basically should be able to sell it. It depends on the immediacy. I mean, a big porphyry takes 10 to 15 years to develop. The sort of mines as well we've got in Africa at the moment. You could have them in production in a year, 18 months, gentlemen, and that is going to be more important. It's all right, the chief executive of a Freeport or a BHP putting them onto his inventory balance sheet, but there's another question. The copper is needed now. The copper is needed in 2024, 25. And, have you seen these latest round of acquisitions of the major mining companies and projects? That's passing the ball. It's the same projects being passed around for a lot of money, but where are the new projects? That's my question. Where are the new projects? Because all the majors are doing by buying one another and buying out developed projects is passing the ball. They're not passing the parcel, but it's not generating new projects. And that's where the demand is. New projects, new copper, near to production, and won't take ever to get into production, a year to 18 months. And that's the ballpark I want our companies to be in, with the exception of Bushranger. So you should quite rightly say it's a bigger project. It's going to be a giant of a project when eventually it becomes a project. But all the others, are in the 1% to 2%, and dedicated plant, combination of underground and surface mining, and we're capable of bringing the production in short time. And, the level of interest we've got round us now, Jen, is bigger than it's ever been in my career. So, I'm not preaching to myself. I won't go as far as to say the telephone never stop running, but there's a hell of a lot of interest in what we're doing.
Yeah, very good. And I mean, we're also in a world where we have the same situation going on with lithium, only it seems to be more immediate. So how do you see that playing out with your companies as well?
Well, we've got the lithium project in Kemotivi. That's 520 square kilometers, which is 10 times bigger than the Kemotivi mine. Our first hole, as we reported lithium. We've got tin on the XRF, but I can't report tin until it's been assayed in South Africa. But the pegmatites, we're very, 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 very excited about what we're finding. We've only explored one of 9 targets. So again, our shareholders in Galileo are very, very well positioned there.
Yeah. And I mean, overall, what else do you see in the portfolio that's going to be exciting over the next period of time?
Well, you've got the nickel in Kendrick, of course, and that down in Norway. And we just made the acquisition in Sweden as well, which excites us. Vanadium, I think the world hasn't woke up to the fact that you generate, with your wind farms and your sun. When the sun goes out, that's the end of the story. And when the wind stops blowing, that's the end of the story. So to have storage, which, these vanadium, these vanadium storage units, I think will come into being. Slow at the moment, but the recognition again is coming. We've got to be able to store this energy. So again, we're well positioned in Sweden and Finland with our vanadium. So you talk about tomorrow, you talk about new age metals, and then you talk about our portfolio, because we're in it, we're there. And most of our projects are brownfields, and quite a few of them are moving over towards raising money and gaining mining licenses and getting ready for, for development.
Very good. Just to be slightly more specific about a country, because hopefully we're going to be coming down and visiting you in Namibia. Tell us what assets are available in which companies in Namibia.
In Namibia, well, you look, Bizant, of course, Bizant's got the Open Gorp project, which is 56 kilometers of the Matchless Belt down near, and it's Walvis Bay. That's fully drilled out, and we're talking to various financing groups now about bringing that into production. So that's an exciting project. Then closer to Windhoek, about 25 kilometers away, we have the Ongombo mine. We took that on, Kevin, with the 10 million tons. We announced the other day we're up to 29. And as management, we've decided we've got to drill the eastern shoots, bring in the gold, because the independent guys wouldn't give us the benefit of the gold because there was not enough assays. So we've got to twin a few holes, get the assays. So the copper equivalent will go up, as will the tons. And so Ongombo could well, again, meet that half a million tons of contained copper. So, and that has got a mining license, and that has also got an environmental committee agreement. So we're very, very close to having all, the full Monty for that one. So there's your $500,000. Down at Open Gorp, we're on to about 350 million. That's in Open Gorp's in Bizant, and of course Ongombo is in African Pioneer.
Based on the Ongombo asset alone in African Pioneer, with African Pioneer having a market capitalization of £4 to £5 million, how does that work out?
It doesn't, does it? There's such a disconnect that African Pioneer, essentially the Ongombo project, if you value copper in ground as just the criteria, if you look at the MPV and the way companies are valued, it just doesn't make sense. Then combine that with the First Quantum joint venture agreement, and there you are with a massive tract of ground, which is a replica of Kamoa, which is the second richest copper mine in the world. 6 million says we have no recognition. And the market cap is, it's difficult to take serious. But of course it is serious because people put their valuable money in it. And, so none of us who are in this small mining space are very, very happy with our share prices, the way our shares have performed, obviously the market capitalizations of our companies. But, the type of investor we get, in the majority, is resilient. They know that the change will come. And it's a miserable thing to wake up every morning and see between 50 and 70% loss on your portfolio. Takes a lot of stomach in, but also the seasoned investor out of a portfolio of half a dozen companies is going to have two of them come home. And when they come home, Kevin, they come home in no small way. So our industry, by definition, attracts investors who are not that risk averse. It attracts investors who do a lot of good homework done. I read it on the bulletin boards. Our industry attracts investors who do their own work and have got the patience. But I have to say, their patience is being tested, like our patience is being tested. And but we all know there's a silver lining around the corner. We all know that there's light at the end of the tunnel. Cliches, I know, but we talked about the realities driving the industry. They're not going to go away. And we're busy adding value to all of our projects.
Yep, I think we're going to have some change for sure.
Heck, it needs it, doesn't it?
It sure does, but optimistic as I am, I still forecast February, March next year.
Hold him to that one, Kev. Mark that one down.
Yeah, write it down. Write it down. I'm
February, March
sad
next
by
year.
it. Of course, I think the fundamentals are there. The young frogs will have got used to a bit of inflation. The serious measures, various finance directors of governments, finance, secretaries and whatever of governments, and the Fed and that. I think all of it will work its way through. I think we'll see inflation easing. I think the thoughts of recession will have diminished, or we may even go through a small recession. By then, hopefully, I don't think Ukraine is really affecting the market. It's now, it's factored in. And so the reality is, the cars companies are gearing up for these new electric cars. Everybody's gearing up to it, and we've got to find this copper, I'm afraid, gents. And the fundamentals aren't going to go away.
Yeah. So we normally ask you, obviously being on the Sunday roast, we've done it to death. What's your favourite one? But we're going to sort of chop it up a little bit this season. We're going to ask you, what's the best advice you've ever received or heard?
Best advice I've ever received, I've heard. I think it really is on a golf course, and when I was pretty erratic, and I think it applies to my mining career as well. You can't have the last shot back, play the next one. So it's Ryder Cup time, and as I say, it's February is the time for my forecast for a whole new industry. Don't cry in your beer, don't regret. Regret's no good. Just look forward and play your next shots nicely, and that's what I'm trying to do.
That's good. And Europe were 4-0 in the morning, 4 balls. So
I know. But so with the ladies, so with the American ladies, and you look what happened there in the Solheim, the equivalent game for the ladies. So
I'm not so much a golf fan, but I tell you what, I love the Ryder Cup. I think it's a fantastic tournament.
Any sport at its absolute tops is watchable and enjoyable, isn't it? Whether you particularly like that sport, when you see it at its top level, you've just got to admire the participants, haven't you?
Very good. So we'll say seasoned mining entrepreneur Colin Bird, thanks very much for coming on.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you for your time, and let's look forward to a bright autumn and an even better new year than I've been forecasting.
Indeed. Thank you, Colin.
Thank you very much, gents. Thank you.
So should we move on, as we alluded to early on, should we move on to our stocks of 2023 and give a kind of a recap on where we are?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, do you want to just give an overview of the numbers, what your percentages, etc., compared to where we have been in the year?
Yeah, I mean, we're basically just 2% up over the year. Obviously, we were much, much higher, 28 to 30% up, I think, at one point, based really on one or two stocks that had done very well, as opposed to the others that hadn't done so well. So we're starting to see a bit of a leveling up, I think, in terms of the portfolio as well, in terms of what's doing well, what's not doing well. So yeah, let's just run through them specifically, and then we'll take it from there. We'll start from the worst performer, and then
okay. Yeah. So the one I've got on my list at the bottom, worst performer, is Prospects Energy, which ironically was actually doing pretty well. I mean, I guess it had done very well when we first started it. That was around the 13.50 pence mark, 13.5 pence mark, and it's currently sat was from Friday around the 6.93. It's had a little bit of a flurry of late. I think it got down to about 5 pence, so it has actually bounced back a little bit from the lows. Where are they as a company? Currently, as I say, 7 pence. It's about 50% down on when we first mentioned it in January of this year, or December of last year, should I say. What have they got? I mean, they've got 2 producing assets now from onshore indigenous European gas assets. Balance sheet is strengthening month on month, as we've seen. And, the use of cash flow to self-finance future drills on both Selva and El Romeral. No raise is needed for this activity. So it looks really good. I think it's just been one of those that's been beaten back on the fact that energy prices have dropped back away. But obviously, we're now seeing energy prices, ironically, moving back up to the oil at the sort of $100 a barrel. Gas is moving back up. So I think it's definitely now primed for recovery, this one.
Yeah, it's exactly where we wanted it to be, which is crazy considering what's happened with the share price. It's where you would have wanted this stock to be. So yeah, it's a bit strange that we see the share price. So
I think if they get the Tesorillo asset online and the license renewed for 2023, and with an option to increase from I think the 15% to the 49.9% ownership for that 1.5 or 1.7 million euros, I think that will really put move it.
Yeah. There's lots of good things that can happen. I think that's gonna affect that. And I see, as you say, we're moving into autumn, winter, and it's normally the time for these type of things. So let's see what sort of performance that has in the last quarter. The next one on the list is BSF Enterprise. It's around the 10p mark. We had it at 15p, so it's down a third basically from the recommendation. Was as high as 21, 22 during the year. Again, they're doing everything that they said they were going to do. They've produced the meat. The city mix thing seems to be rolling out nicely and starting to produce revenue. They're in a situation they've got plenty of cash. They raised money at 17p. So yeah, again, I'm expecting a fairly strong next few months. I'm not sure people get this one yet, though. What do you think?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it'll take a bit of time, but certainly, as you say, it's looking good. From a company perspective, they've moved well from when they were first admitted to trading. They've recently had a €612,000 grant from the European Institute of Innovation and Technology to upscale the production and sales of obviously their City Mix, which we've alluded to before their serum-free medium. So it is looking good. And obviously they've been on the road show in the US over the last few months as well. Yeah, I just think the market is still not valuing it really where it should be.
Yeah. I mean, again, US type companies doing similar thing, having the same results, are worth hundreds of millions of pounds or dollars, and this most definitely is not. So, yeah. Okay, moving on to the next one.
So the next one on the list is Jubilee Metals. Currently sat at around the 7.25 pence. Recommended it around about the 10.2 pence mark. So circa 30% or 29% down. We had Leon on, didn't we? Probably about, 6 to 8 weeks ago. We had a very good update from various different assets from the Inyoni. Yeah, I mean, I just can't believe how much it's dropped back, really, considering where they are.
Yep. No. Copper production is going to be increasing. They're now going to be one of the biggest producers of chrome, I think, in the world. So, yeah, I mean, everything is going well. There has been delays, and that might have caused some of this. But again, it needs to play catch up, and it hasn't really. So maybe we'll see that going forward. And another one, I mean, the theme continues, doesn't it? Because I go on to Contango Holdings. Another one where
it's mind blowing that one. I can't get my head around Contango. Where everybody was going on. Needs to see production and first coal, and yet here we are, and they're around the 3.94 pence mark, and they've got the award of they've got the export permit in place, first sales from Machescu and from Lubu Machescu. What else does it need? What does the market need to see from this one?
I don't know. I think it needs to see US dollars, on the actual piece of coal or something like that, so people can realize that the coal, I mean, there's billions, literally billions of tons of coal ready to be done. I mean, even if they didn't take it forward themselves now and they just had this asset with billions of dollars with all the things in place, got to be worth significantly more than it currently is. Has to be. It's 26% down or a quarter down, roughly, from when we recommended it. It has been higher during the year. But again, yeah, just doesn't make a lot of sense. And then we move on to the next coal producer, which there has been reasons why, because the met coal prices had plummeted.
Yeah.
But literally on a daily basis now, we're seeing the met coal price increase. And that's going to obviously affect Ben's Creek. Again, 25% down from when we recommended it at 21 pence. Should it be worth more than it is today? What do you think?
Well, I mean, obviously, it dipped heavily on the back of high vol A, high vol B prices. I think they were probably actually down 100%, or they've dropped in half from the highs in the four. I remember them being in the 400s or certainly high 300s, and they were down to the low twos. Now they're sat around, I think high vol B's around the 238, 240 mark, with high vol A around the 270, 280. So it is moving back up into the right area, and every dollar it moves is another dollar on the bottom line. It's actually adding more to, because remember the numbers that they announced in September were based on around 190, 198. So actually it's all moving up and it's adding to those numbers. So definitely looking better. We'll see. I mean, I don't know what the market needs to see. He's got both high wall miners back in operation, back with doing not just one shift, but 2 shifts on each. So he should be hitting those numbers.
Yeah. And as you said, if they're hitting those numbers and producing in or around 1 million tons a year, pro rata on a monthly basis, 80,000 tons a month, then it's adding $1 million to the bottom line every time it goes up. I mean, it was up $3 last night, so you'd say that's $3 million of profit being added. So yeah. So moving on then to Galileo, which is about 20% down, was level only a few weeks ago, and then obviously a few sales, and it's taken it down. So
I mean, Galileo is crazily cheap, isn't it? Around the 1 penny mark. I mean, what did they have this year? In 22, they obviously started the exploration on the Kama-TV tin lithium mine now. It was previously tin lithium mine, and obviously also the Bulawayo gold projects in Zimbabwe. And they had following the $1.5 million earning from BC Ventures. Drilling programs initiated. We also saw a JORC 2012 compliant resource sought for Luan Sobe after the promising drill results. So that's all been underway. We obviously saw the investments in BC with Glenover proprietary was significant, stakes increasing up to 51%. Gold and nickel targets, and then there was also, we haven't even mentioned the Kalahari Copperbelt project as well. So I mean, like literally, is there any company that again we can think of, other than maybe one of Colin's other companies like African Pioneer, which we'll probably come on to soon, that has so many good assets in its portfolio?
No, there isn't another one.
I genuinely can't. Not with a market cap around whatever they are on these companies. I'd imagine that African Pioneer is probably sub 10 million, correct me if I'm wrong, and that Galileo is probably around the 14, 15 million mark.
Yeah, so, Galileo, as we heard, some of the things Colin was saying, valuation doesn't add up. The results is there. Yeah, it should be worth more. Simple as that.
Yeah.
We're moving on to the next one now.
Greatland Gold.
So Greatland Gold, it's a strange one as well, isn't it? It's one of those ones that we tipped it at 8p. It's now 6.5p. Has it done anything wrong? Has it done? It's 18% down from when we tipped it. If anything, it's progressed a fair bit this year. Is there a malaise over this because basically its partner is being bought out? I don't know. I'm trying to work out in my own head why Greatland Gold is sitting where it is. What do you think?
Loads of updates, hasn't there? They've had the Havieron update, they've had the Newcrest takeover tour update progress, they've got all sorts of corporate presentations. They've obviously, when you saw Sean was presenting at the Denver Gold Forum, there was Ernest Giles land access agreement announced. There was obviously exercise of options and directed dealing. So there's been a load of RNSs in the last 3 weeks, something like that. Yeah, sort of 2 or 3 weeks. It's just sat around the 6.5 now. I mean, yes, it's got a 300 million market cap, but when you look at the funding that's behind this project or that they've got access to, it beggars belief, really, doesn't it? Yeah.
No, it is. It's wrong to say it's one for the future, but it just seems to be that the value isn't being shown through there. It's a much bigger company now, obviously, but even the new land that they got, as you said, and 2024, it should be revenue producing, and that should mean that the valuation that it has at the minute is not correct. So yeah, and interesting when we chose that one, and I think you would agree when we chose Greatland Gold and we chose Jubilee Metals, we really did think they were two bigger companies, and actually they were going to do very well in this system, and they're both two of the ones that are down, which is bizarre.
Yeah.
So moving on now, we're getting into the point where these stocks are not really haven't really moved very much, and this one is bizarre.
Yeah, I can't get my head around this one. I mean, sovereign metal. Yeah. So let's have a look at some of those economic highlights from the RNS that actually came out middle of this week. You've got an after-tax NPV of $1.6 billion. You've got an after-tax IRR of 28% with an annual EBITDA of average one of around $415 million. Total revenue of $16 billion, which is modelled as a 25-year life of mine. Operating costs around $404 per tonne, and the capex to first production is $597 million. So, I mean, the numbers look really good, don't they?
Yeah. So why hasn't it reacted? I don't know. I mean,
it was down on the day, wasn't it? It's like, was it priced in? Do you think that that's priced in already? What are we at? 100 million market cap. Do you think that something with a NAV like that and revenue, $16 billion revenue over 25 years is priced in 100 million?
I don't think it is. But obviously, the risk criteria with people seems to be so low just at this moment in time that maybe
market leader in the sense that has got the world's largest rutile asset and is positioned to become the world's largest rutile producer at 222,000 tons per annum for initial 25 years, as I just alluded to. and potentially one of the world's largest natural graphite producers outside of China at 244,000 tons per annum as well.
The only thing that I can think of really, which is holding it back, is that, they're going to need $500 million, I think it is, to start the project. So the finances, everybody's ummed and ahed about the finances. But we could take that back to Greatland Gold. I mean, Greatland Gold has its finance.
Yeah, but okay. So then looking at the other side of the coin, so there was an announcement back in July of this year for Sovereign, which stated that Rio Tinto are investing $40.4 million, and they've also become a 15% strategic investor in Sovereign. I mean, surely there's going to be, if funding is needed, surely there's going to be available. If Rio are coming in, there's going to be other companies that are potentially going to be able to fund this going forward.
You would imagine so, wouldn't you? I mean, Rio can fund this out of cash flow, probably, or at the end of the day, they have lines with the banks anyway. So
it comes back to what we were just saying with Colin, doesn't it? This whole kind of like this investment that's needed, underinvestment for these critical metals, for strategic metals. When we're going to see, yes, we've started seeing little investments and little pockets of $40 million here, $10 million here. But when are we going to start seeing some proper takeovers and funding going through to production? That's when I'll start getting really interested in this.
Yeah. And then we move on to African Pioneer, which Colin talked about. And hopefully we're going to go and visit as well on Gombo and other projects that are in Namibia. And he's also got the first quantum situation. Got a £4 million market cap company that's got cash because it raised money there recently. How is it only worth £4 million? It should genuinely, and I'll go out on a limb, it should be worth at least 40 million in my view. And that wouldn't be over egging it. Like that's not me being super optimistic. That is me saying it's got a big copper project and it's got these deals with First Quantum, which are also being proved up. So again, African Pioneer, from the point of view of our stocks, is level pretty much on the year, the same as Sovereign Metal, 3-4% down. But I mean, depends what time of the day you took the price on Friday. But African Pioneer is completely, I know we keep saying bizarre, but it just is completely bizarre, And then we move on to Helium One. What's your thoughts on Helium One? That's going up and down like
I mean, Helium One, there was a really good, I was on Twitter, or was formerly Twitter, now X, this morning, and there was basically a video posted on the Helium One X handle or X feed, and it was the CEO, Lorna Blaze, who was actually on site at Rukwa in Tanzania, where they've announced, obviously, that I think it's the Tai 3 well, the commencement of drilling there. And you could see the drill stack there, all the rig was there. It was very noisy in the background. They had all the mud behind her, and obviously the mud logging, etc. Obviously, while it was being drilled, mass spectrometer on site was there to measure and validate the any helium gas shows that are encountered. So really, really nice video of her explaining what was going on. So yeah, I mean, it's great now that there's excitement there. So remember when we tipped this back, or was it back end of December, early January? They obviously had the sudden announcement, unfortunately, that they couldn't secure a rig, didn't they? The rig was pulled. So
that's right.
That was a disaster, wasn't it? And now, obviously, here we are. Yes, it's a few months on. It's sort of end of September. They announced that they were on site, and that. So she's done really well to be able to get that rig and get it there on site and actually start drilling operations.
Yeah, and 6% up, but has been significantly higher than that even in the last few weeks. It's another one that could go parabolic, I think, if it's proven that there is helium there, obviously. And then we move on to Technology Minerals, which had a great announcement yesterday on Thursday. We're recording this on Friday, obviously.
But it's obviously priced in anyway, that it doesn't matter about the commissioning and everything like that. That's clearly priced in now, isn't it? But I mean, it moved to 1A and finished on Friday at 1.59, 1.6, where it started the week at. It's bonkers.
It's absolutely bonkers, that's right. You're talking about a company now worth 27 million that effectively, I think, in the next 12 months, once the plants are up and running, are going to be producing EBITDA of more than that. And then you've got the mining stuff as well, and
yeah, I mean, we've got to
completely bizarre.
Got to get Robin and Alex on in the next week or two, and just to hear them, because obviously it's taken probably longer than anticipated. These things do take time, but I'd rather it took longer and was signed off and commissioning is done, all the gases are sorted, it's all good, nitrogen's, so it's good. I mean, this company is now massively de-risked. The fact that they've got the commissioning, they've got it all approved, they've got the EA approval, they just need to get the off-takes in place so they can start supplying the black mass. And for me, this company now at this valuation is I just can't believe it.
Yeah, I think the next sort of 15 months could be very exciting time for Teck Minerals, and I think the share price is going to reflect that. Again, I know we keep being positive, but genuinely believe now that there's not much standing in its way.
Yeah. And I don't think it can be too far away that we've, remember we visited Tipton, didn't we? And we saw the lead acid plant there. It surely can't be too long before that they get this variation on that there for the EA. Because remember, when we visited, they were still hand sawing, and they are, to my knowledge, or to our knowledge, still doing the hand sawing of the lead acid batteries that we saw there that came from the forklift trucks. So there's a big, large scale ones that from not your normal car batteries that answer it, but the much larger scale commercial use lead acid batteries. So once that variation is granted, then they can then effectively switch the plant on, because don't forget, we've seen that, not seen it in operation, but we've seen it all together, all the different components. So once they get that feedstock in place and get that variation license, then again, another site's been brought on. They've done what they said they were going to do, to have one lead acid, one lithium ion, and then from there on, they can then just start to scale up and roll out another plant here, another plant there. And I think they're already looking. They've already got sites here that are earmarked, right, for these next ones.
Yeah, I think so. So it's going to be exciting times, I think. Again, everybody's had to have a lot of patience, I think. Let's put it that way, because it's not just 1 or 2 months delays here. We're talking about, I think, over a year, basically, because of environmental stuff, cash flow issues, many issues. But the reality is, where we sit right now, it's undervalued in my view, and we should see some exciting times ahead. And then the final one in our portfolio, which really has been the star, is Chill Holdings, or Chill Brands. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, Chill's been good. It sits currently around the 6.2 pence mark. Apparently, it's 208% up on when it was recommended around the 2 pence, where it was 2 pence. So it's done very well. Obviously, the high of the year was circa 13.5, 14 maybe, certainly 13.5. I'll say that as a midpoint. And so it's effectively still, like half the value that it got to when it was at its peak. But I think that, once they can start getting these sales out and actually start getting them rolled out to hopefully some big names, your high street brands or your high street retailers, then ultimately, we can start seeing some of these actual revenue figures.
Yeah, I think it's going to be judged on its potential to create revenue, both UK, US, Middle East, and then maybe also then Europe, and then Far East eventually, I think. Though there has been rumour that there is something going on in the Far East, but we will see. Yeah, and I have this pen in my hand, which is a Vape TV pen, which are the guys who are pushing it out in the UK. So if we get some good positive news from those, who knows? I think there's still a lot of upside to be got, and we will see. Will anything overtake it before the end of the year is the question. I don't know whether people will get the news or there will be a reality check, but for me, the glaringly obvious one is African Pioneer. I just don't understand how its value is where it is. The potential for something that is solid, done and ready to go is Technology Minerals, in my view. And do you want to quickly cover the 5 gold ring?
Yeah, I don't want to spend too much time on them, really. I mean, Alchemy Capital Investments, we'll start with E-Star Resources, which is circa around very similar amount to Alchemy. But E-Star Resources, I mean, you know more on that than me. I've never been a massive fan. I feel like it's just in a jurisdiction that's a little bit too, I don't know, it's not
Down 50% on the year, and effectively at the start of this year, we had the potential for gold. We had the potential for rare earth, which was what was the thing that was getting me excited, and it has the potential for copper. Now, gold has been put on the back burner, even though there is gold there. Rare earth, they're not sure whether they can get the rare earths out, so therefore it's probably on the back burner. And basically now you're looking at a big copper asset, and we're pretty sure the copper asset is there. So is it worth what it should be worth based on that copper asset and a joke that will come out, I think, in the coming months? I think no. I think it's not worth that. Does it still have the huge potential upside that it had with those 3 opportunities? I don't think so. Not as much, but certainly still it's not worth what it should be even now, I think. I mean, E-Star Resources at 1.5 pence is worth a market capitalization of somewhere in the region of, £3 million. Well, £3 million for a copper asset seems rather harsh, to say the least. But yeah, these things have been smacked, haven't they? And then you go on to Alchemy Capital Investments. They had an announcement this week, I think.
Yeah, there's an announcement that came out. Obviously, they've managed to secure a funding package of circa 613,000, I think, of which about 430,000 of that is a grant from Innovate UK, which is obviously the UK's national innovation agency. And that's going to support the projects that align with the government's Levelling Up white paper and promoting net zero innovation in the Tees Valley. So looks good from them, but obviously it's not going to fund it to fund it to full production. That presumably will come further down the line. But so it's good to see them actually getting a grant, right?
It is, but they need 600 million in funding. So when that 600 million in funding comes, then they'll be off to the races, I think. But until then, I think everybody's just playing a waiting game, aren't they?
Yeah.
And, we tipped it at £2.80 thinking it had a lot of legs. And these, if you remember, were 5 gold rings. These were things that we thought, if they get the right news and they get the right situation, they should do very well. So that's down 50%. Extract Resources, down 25% from when we tipped it at 1.8. I mean, again, Extract has a lot of things going for it. It's got the gold in Mozambique. It's got a copper project now. I think it's in Zambia. And obviously the elephant in the room is Bush Ranger, which, could be monumental. But the problem is it's going to take a lot of time and a lot of effort and a lot higher copper price, I think, for that to work out. Conroy Gold, what do you think?
Yeah, again, one I don't understand really. More gold being proven all the time. Steve Glar, we've seen a lot of announcements. Obviously, Demir, they're working away very, very hard. Lots of drilling going on. Lots of different new places and new parts of the district there being explored. Good grades, but yet the share price remains circa 15% down on the 14.5 buy, and it's currently at about 12.4 pence. So don't understand that one at all, really.
Yeah, I mean, that truly is a gold ring, because I think there is a lot of gold in the ground there. I think people have just got fed up because it took so long to get to this point that they're not really truly valuing it now that it looks like it's going to happen.
Yeah.
And then
Blencowe was good. We talked about them last week, didn't we? And again, the grant they got, I mean, it was amazing, wasn't it?
Yeah. And the only one that is actually up out of these gold rings at 16% up at 4.9p. But how can you get a £5 million grant from the US government to say, go ahead and do this thing? And the share price not absolutely skyrocket?
Yeah, and it's actually the world's first pre-production graphite project to achieve this DFCU, which is US government funding support. So they've set a record there. But yeah, I mean, it's currently around the, as I say, 15% up, but it hit around 6.2, I think. So it would have been at least 30. It has been 30% up on that. It's probably even been 30% up before this news as well, right? From the current price.
Yeah, and a £10 million market capitalisation with $5 million of grant coming to progress it. And I'm quite sure the US government haven't said, let's progress this just for the sake of it. You know, they've obviously done their due diligence. So
they were very clever, because what they said, the DFC, which is the US government, has a right of first refusal on commercial terms to arrange project financing for the Orme Cross project. So there you go. Having on that.
So they can have first dibs to actually finance the whole thing and then get the graphite themselves.
Yeah.
Which is what the whole point behind what they were trying to do as the US government. So they obviously see potential in it, and they're more than happy to give the grant. And so will Blenco catch up in terms of its valuation? Let's hope so, because
it's looking very good, isn't it? Now Blenco Resources really is. Mike's done a cracking job there, for sure.
I think so.
Okay, so
we've done the ducks to death there. Is there anything else?
No, I mean, there's been some good movers this week. The best mover of the week on the market, so we move on to the movers and shakers, was Oxford Biodynamics. OBD is the ticker. The share price is currently around the 27-28 pence mark, market cap 57, and they launched a highly accurate 94% precision EpiSwitch prostate screening blood test for prostate cancer risk in the US and UK. Validation was completed ahead of schedule in the OBD's US CLIA certified lab, enabling immediate availability of the test. So cracking, I mean, to be able to do that sort of accuracy testing for prostate screening, obviously prostate cancer, one of those that's, is survivable going forward. Obviously it can be treated and things like that. And so, yeah, very good news for them.
Indeed.
We also, what else was there? I think Tech Capital had quite a good one. Premier African Minerals, that's the listener's favourite, Prem. They successfully installed new machinery at their Zulu lithium project, increasing production to meet targets, so that one was up on the week as well. And currently got a market cap of about 124 million. So yeah, there's a few things that are kind of like moving the stock. As I say, OBD did over 200%, which is brilliant, but it's not often you see them hold 200% mark. And before, like Brez was a good example. It was up, I think, at one point 60, 70, 80%, and it dropped back down to probably almost 10% on the day, or 12%, or 15% we talked about, didn't we, on the day? So crazy how much selling goes on the news, and bringing it back down to the, or not much above where it started in the morning, really.
Yeah, Seed Innovations, after we had them Ed on last week, it had a steady week, finished around 4p, which was up from 3.6, 3.7 last week. So yeah, that was a steady old stock. I think that could potentially do extremely well, as Ed said. So yeah, there is a lot of value out there, and good luck in finding it.
Absolutely. Well, on that note, I think he'll go off to watch the Ryder Cup, and say to your listeners, thanks for listening. If you like what you heard, hit the subscribe and hit the bell icon so you get notifications about any further episodes.
Indeed. And hopefully by the time you're listening to this, we've won the Ryder Cup. Let's see what happens.
This podcast was brought to you by Roast PR Limited. If you would like to appear on a future episode of The Sunday Roast, please email admin@thesundayroast.net